Hello and welcome to Board Game Gumbo. Today we're unboxing the Granja, no Siesta from Stronghold Games. This game plays 1 to 4 players in about 30 minutes. It is a dice version of the much larger Euro style game, the Granja. So we've got some pencils here because this is it's a dice drafting game with mechanics that you'll have to write down. We've got the dice here, so I really like these dice because they're nice, thick, wooden dice, but you do have to apply the stickers yourselves. And with our dice, we have the first player token, and then some tabs here. Every player is going to get a different color for their tabs, and those will be used for a couple different reasons. We've got the rest of the components here. So first of all, we have our rule book. We have an instruction guide, I guess, if you need instructions on how to apply stickers, or maybe it's just letting you know that you have to apply stickers. This is a bit like the victory track. So a couple things happen here. Each person's going to have one of their tabs here, and each time they want to allocate one of their hats, they can do so by moving their token up. First of all, every space you're on this board is a victory point. The first person who gets to the end triggers the end of the game, and at different intervals here, you'll see you'll get an additional one of your player tabs when you cross or end on that particular spot. Got here another board. This is for additional in-game scoring. It says two-sided, so if you're playing solo, you'll play on this side, but if you're playing at any other player count, you'll play on this side. And what this does is you can assign, during the course of the game, you can assign your player pieces to these different spots on the board for additional in-game scoring. So this one is 1 additional point at the end of the game for every worker that you have access to by the end of the game. This is 1 extra point for every barn roof that you've built by the end of the game. We've got player boards here, so everybody's going to get their own player board and their own color. And the interesting thing about those player pieces, the little tabs, is although you can use them for additional in-game scoring, they're also how you mark your resources. So if you have 4 of them, you can hold 4 resources around. If you only have 3, then obviously you can only hold 3. These are the different resources, so olives all the way to donkeys going from left to right, and then the kind of special resources, the hats, and then the cargo, which can be used for anything. We got some other things on the punch board here. So these are the barn roofs. One of the actions you can do is build a barn roof, and when you do that, you're going to just pick one of these tiles at random, and then what's on the other side are resources that you can then use for the other stage of the game. Also have some of the workers. So there are 2 types of workers. Every player will get a selection of workers in their color. So you see that green here, all of these workers here are for green, the green player. So when you hire a worker, you can hire one of your workers that are specific to your color. They also have some neutral workers, which is an advanced rule that you can play with, but basically these gray ones are the neutral workers. And when you hire a worker, you can choose to hire one of these neutral workers instead, and these are limited. There's only 2 of each. So whereas with the ones that are specific to your color, everybody has the same workers. Those generic workers are limited to 2 each. You've got a score sheet here, and behind it, the stickers, which looks like we only lost 1 of them. Hopefully, yep, there we go. So we'll just put him right back. So again, you'll have to go through and sticker each die individually. And then we've got the player sheets themselves. So essentially what you're going to do during the course of the game is the first player is going to roll a certain number of dice. It's the number of players times 2 plus 1. So say if you're playing with everybody, you're going to roll all the dice, obviously. And you're going to roll all the dice, and then you're going to draft in player order. And obviously these dice will have the different sides. So say this one is a wine, a purple. So you take that. When it gets back to the first player, he's going to re-roll. So there'll be another 3 missing by that point. He'll re-roll, and then the players will draft again. Let's say this time you draft a blue. So you've got a purple and a blue, and then these are gone. Whatever the last die is, everybody gets that die. And then you will allocate the dice that you've drafted to this board in some way. So down here, you've got the different carts that you can send out. Whenever you accomplish an objective, you're going to score a certain number of points. So you see here the barn roofs. The first one you build takes you 2 silver, 2 money, and gets you 1 victory point. And then it's got the arrows. The arrows just let you know that you have to go left to right. The workers here, by contrast, don't have arrows. So you could start with the hardest worker, which not only gives you one of the workers to hire, which is a special ability for the rest of the game, but also 2 victory points. Down here you have the stable and the, I think it's called the silo, where you can just have additional resources that you can't put anywhere else, and they are worth points. Every time you finish a column here, you will score 1 additional point at the end of the game. You have shipping out here, but to ship, you have to have 3 of the same good at the same time. And I should note that your goods don't hold over in between rounds. What you acquire on one round, you either use it or you lose access to it. So having 3 of one good at one time is actually fairly difficult to do. What this gives you is one of these cargo tokens, which, as we explained earlier, are basically wilds. You can use them as anything. The last thing here is the carts. Carts require donkeys to get them to market. And then you see the arrows, which means you have to fill them from left to right. When you do fill them, a couple of things happen. First, if you're the first person to fill that particular cart, you get the larger point value. So 5 points in this case. Any other person still gets points, but they only get 3. You also get a cargo. And this is when you can move one of your tabs over to the additional in-game scoring tile, this one. So when you complete a cart, you can take one of your player tabs and put it on one of these spots. These spots are limited to number of players -1. So in a 4-player game, you could only have 3 tabs there. And you can't have more than 1 on the same spot. So I can't put all 3 of mine there. But again, this limits you in the number of resources you can have. And this is you have to do this when you complete the cart. You can't decide to then do it later. That's essentially the entire game, which will play over, again, as I said, until somebody reaches the end of that Siesta track, which had all the hats on it. And then you'll total up and see who has the most victory points. And that's it. That's everything you get in La Granja, no Siesta.